Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be reviewing the popular live-action television superhero series, The Boys. The show is based off the comic book of the same name and was created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. The show is developed and directed by Eric Kripke, though I believe every episode is directed by a different person if I'm not mistaken. The show is produced by a few companies including Kripke Enterprises, Point Grey Pictures, Sony Pictures Television Studios, as well as Amazon Studios to name a few. That being said, the series is developed and distributed by both Sony and Amazon, though the series is home to and streamed on Amazon. Each episode, at least for season 1, is reported to have a budget of just over $10 million, and that shows since production quality for this series is quite high. That is usually the case for superhero movies and or series, as the action involved, either practical or via special effects, is quite costly to produce. The quality is present in both effects and as well as the writing development of the story itself. I'll cover that more later on, but for now I'll simply go over the cast and then the plot. The series stars a lot of people, so I'm just going to name a few main characters. I do apologize for leaving a few people out. The series stars Carl Urban as Billy Butcher, Jack Quaid as Huey Campbell, Laz Alonso as Mother's Milk, and Tony Starr as Homelander, Erin Moriarty as Annie January, aka Starlight, Dominique McElliott as Maggie Shaw, aka Queen Maeve, Jesse T. Usher as A-Train, Chance Crawford as The Deep, and Elizabeth Shue as Madeline Stillwell. I do apologize for leaving people out and mispronouncing any names. Okay, so the plot entails a group of people who have been hurt by superheroes that are worshipped as celebrities by the public, by the majority of the public. To the public, these superheroes, aka supes, can do no wrong. These people know otherwise and take it upon themselves to not only seek revenge on those supes who hurt them and their loved ones, but to make sure they don't do it again by keeping tabs on them. They operate under the unofficial name of The Boys, hence the title of the show. They sometimes work as an independent group or sometimes get help from various government organizations like the FBI or the CIA. So that is a very brief summary of what the comic book as well as the television series is about. I'm going to go ahead and review qualities of season 1, such as writing, cinematography, writing and scoring, editing and acting, before moving on to any potential spoilers, of which I will warn you of ahead of time. So first up, in terms of the writing, I gotta say it's pretty good. I'm unaware of the exact percentage of how much they keep from the original content of the comic book series as they do to the television series in tandem with any original ideas put out by the studio. From other sources, I see that there are actually major changes that take place in character placement and plot development, but since I don't know too much about the comic books, I will just stick with the television series and what I know from my viewing of the series. The writing is good in a sense that it's very realistic, the way they interact with both members of the Boys and any interested government parties as well as the supes themselves. The supes themselves are written as not too over-the-top prima donnas, since they actually do have powers and are not just dancing puppets to the public. They fight crime from time to time, though sometimes not so successfully, ipso facto the creation of the Boys. Not only is the dialogue realistic, but it's written in a way so as to keep the viewer interested. There's a lot of plot twists and things like that that come out that really keep you wanting more. It's a show that's somewhat easy to binge, and it's part due to the writing and plot development. Next up is the acting in the show. I gotta say, everyone did a really good job. Nothing mind-blowing, but as stated, they did a really good job. I just believe the acting and delivering of all the critical dialogue was just spot on. I'm just going to list off a couple people I believe did the best acting throughout the show, and I truly enjoy their presence on screen. Every time they're on, I'm just excited to see them and just glued to the screen. First off, and least shockingly, is Tony Starr as Homelander. He does a good job of playing a bully prima donna killer supe that only gets better and a bit more complex as the series goes on. Of course, we're reviewing season 1. We'll talk about his character later on as I review further seasons. Next up would be Erin Moriarty as Annie January, aka Starlight. She has good emotion, and her character is changing throughout the seasons in a very pleasant way. It gives you a lot to work with. It's a very well-rounded character. Next up would be Jesse T. Usher as A-Train. I like his characters. Though his motivations are questionable from time to time, he does a good job of playing the character and is always entertaining to watch. I enjoy Chance Crawford as The Deep. Sorry, not sorry, I gotta say that every single time. Interesting though, I did enjoy the acting from Brittany Allen, who does portray Popclaw in season 1 as a minor antagonist. I noticed that face, girl, and I'm not saying that in any weird way. It's just that all of her facial expressions in terms of sadness or grief or anything like that were very real, and I noticed people don't talk about her because, as mentioned, she plays a very minor part, but I did notice that. Really good stuff. Good for her. That's going to be it for the actors, though I did, that I thought did well in the show. Keep in mind that it was not in any order of the people that I listed. It's just the actors that I thought did a good job as well as were entertaining to watch. My least favorite actors or characters in the show would be Karen Fukuhara, who plays Kimiko, or the female, and Frenchie. Those two are my least favorite, and I want to skip every scene they're in. But overall, everyone does a good job. Moving on. So the cinematography for the show is pretty decent, nothing crazy. I'm not sure if you're noticing that I say that a lot for a lot of other shows or series or movies. It's not that I'm playing both sides or that I'm on the fence or being neutral, but that I only notice good cinematography as well as other elements if they're just okay. I will tell you that they're just okay. There are no beautiful shots of wild, varying landscapes, no cool transitions, or wildly interesting camera movement or work, which is odd considering this is a superhero show which has potential for a lot of that. For instance, you could have a camera angle or somehow like attach a GoPro to A-Train running to see how that distorts what he sees. You can have like a camera attached to Homelander when he's flying. Things like that, creative endeavors they could take on but haven't. Overall, just decent, and moving on to editing. So the editing is actually pretty good, I have to say. Slightly better than the cinematography. I remember the scene when we're introduced to Homelander and Maeve, when Maeve bursts through that armored truck. Totally awesome, especially when you're first ever watching this series. Damn, I think that's a spoiler. But, just seeing that happen was really cool. Their introduction results in a transition of a TV news report that's, of course, reporting their event, their heroic event, and the screen that's reporting this gets sprayed on and cleaned by Huey in the electronics store he works at. A great way to transition from character to character, and it was really cool to see. Those small details really make the show flow in a way that is just mind-blowing. If you could just do that throughout the series, A+ stuff right there. I'm sure you'll notice if you rewatch it, if other events include A-Train running through Robin, the plane episode, just really good stuff there. So the musical scoring of this show is done by Christopher Leonard, and I gotta say, some pretty good stuff. I went ahead and listened to the soundtrack, I think 2 days ago, just the songs individually. They have a really good way to kind of elicit the emotion they're going for. It helps keep the pace of the show, and I see he's done a lot of good work for them. Any intense moments are amplified with his work, and I'm excited to see his work continue to serve the show well. Moving on. So costume design. I usually don't talk about costume design in my previous reviews. It's not something that shows up all the time or really catches my attention, but for a superhero show like this, I gotta say they're front and center, so I gotta comment on how they look for the most part, and they look great. I think each costume perfectly captures each character's power and personality. Homelander's all about America. Red, white, and blue. He embodies all of America and not all the good parts of America. He bullies everyone around him. Starlight's costume is white to display her innocence and sporting hints of yellow to kind of emphasize her electrical or energy powers. Queen Maeve is kind of a tough, no-nonsense character who happens to have a warrior-type costume design. The Deep is somewhat of a fish. He's selfish and self-absorbed, hence the color of green, being a little bit greedy or self-absorbed, plus he's in the ocean all the time. A-Train is mainly blue, which is the color of intelligence and freedom and open space, the sky, so I'm not sure how much that ties into the connection of his super speed, but overall still looks good. Black Noir as well, moving on. Alright, this is the part of the video where I'm going to be covering spoiler topics, things that I don't like and do like. I'll cover the bad and then leave off with the good. If you're really interested in seeing the series, I'll just give you an overall review where I say it's pretty good. Definitely worth a watch, something entertaining to watch. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it's definitely binge-worthy. I think they're up to Season 3 that you can view. Season 4 will be coming out sometime next year, I believe. And just pretty good overall. Now I'm going to be getting into spoilers, of course, starting off with stuff I don't like. As mentioned earlier, I really don't enjoy any scene with Kimiko or Frenchie at all. I hate language barriers in real life, and to see this in media is just so aggravating. Yeah, they have subtitles, and I don't mind reading them, but you have to understand I live in a very diverse city where I deal with this type of stuff on a daily basis. And if you experience them, you know how infuriating and inconveniencing something like that can be. It really puts a thorn on the side of the characters and viewers when one character has to constantly ask or wonder what she's saying. So it's just repetitive and unentertaining. They're in the middle of a bus station and they're like, what is she saying? They're in the middle of a firefight and they're like, what is she saying? And they're in the middle of the jungle or some other setting, and anytime she speaks, someone has to say, what is she saying? Or have to have some 2-second or 10-second dialogue or exchange where they're like, what is going on? What is she saying? Do you not know how annoying that is, how unentertaining that is, and just like a brake pumping thing to do in a show? Like, just totally unentertaining to me. If I was a part of the boys group, I would seldom interact with someone who doesn't speak English or even tries to speak English. A little bit later on, we find that she's mute, so even if she did, she wouldn't even talk. I think that's more laughable. Like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Moving on, notice I really mentioned any characters in the boys that I enjoy. I really care about the superheroes. I don't care about the boys in any way. I like Butcher, but I find his accent kind of annoying and unfunny. Usually when English people speak, they do so with a funny actor, with a funny accent and an interesting word usage or word phrasing, like "get mad with it" or "you numpty mate, you nump in the head." But he's like that, and he talks so seriously. It's all business, and it's not funny. Huey's also annoying. His character's very weak, and not in the writing or acting sense, but in the literal sense. You know, he has a hard time standing up for himself, which is a part in the story where he has to, go through this journey where he has to learn to stand up for himself, which is good and noble, but damn, is it an annoying thing to watch. Oh man, Popclaw sucking on A-Train's toes is so disturbing. That's such disturbing shite. Man, that toe sucking idea was definitely Seth Rogen's call. And pretty much that's it for all the things or characters I don't like about the show. Obviously, the show is somewhat hedonistic and godless, but that's what the production companies in Hollywood are pumping out to demoralize the masses. Now moving on to the things I enjoy and I think are really cool with the show. Alright, so spoiler stuff I really enjoyed in the show. I like the new take on superheroes. 90% of the mediascape is littered with superhero movies that are just one of the same. Nothing really different. They focus on the crime-solving endeavors and how they're always a good versus bad type movie, which is fine. I enjoy those. There's nothing wrong with that. But to see that time and time and time and time and again is quite boring. So to see these superheroes painted in a different light is refreshing. With this show, we actually get to see a more humanistic side of what happens to superheroes that have to go through this godless, hedonistic society that we live in. It's entertaining to watch them have to go through all these human-centered traumas and deal with things like blackmail, covering up crimes they may or may not have committed intentionally. Keeps you, as the viewer, constantly guessing as to what they're going to do next, what their motivations are. They're more human-like than godlike in any way. So everyone's really on their toes, and nobody really knows who's going to die or not. So it's very fresh to have that. Plot development in the show is good, too. I like that we find out these soups are just a product of drugs and not divine intervention, which, to be honest, I have no clue how the stupid masses would believe it. I mean, think about it. Like, God would randomly zap people with superheroes on Earth randomly at this time in history, not to mention zap them with different, wildly varying superpowers. One person can fly, one person can turn invisible, one person can shoot lightning. Like, what in the heck can these stupid people believe? And obviously this is a TV show, but this is just something I'm kind of going off on a tangent with because it doesn't make sense with any laws of nature that we are aware of, anything to do with evolution. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I don't know, if you have a somewhat of a scientific mind or any intellectual inklings, you will realize, wait a minute, everyone bought this lie that every superhero was a production of God made them a superhero, but all of them are different. Like, what? Why wouldn't they just be slightly like Homelander, some stronger, some not so strong? Some would evolve to become faster than like A-Train or whatever, but everyone has their own thing. Whatever. I digress. I enjoy some characters, like for instance Elizabeth Shue does a good job of playing the protagonist girl boss. I enjoy Ashley's character and hope they work on her more, her aspect of being a pushover. They can go one of two ways. Either she likes being abused or she hates being abused. If she likes being abused, then it can play to be some sort of odd fetishistic aspect to her character where we'll likely find her on the side that abuses her the most, which would be the bad guys or the antagonists throughout, because they're the ones giving her the punishment she weirdly, enjoys. However, if she hates being abused and bossed around, then it could set her up for a very redeeming arc. Near the end, she decides to stop all the crimes and whatnot. Further on, I think it'd be funny if they did a scene where, let's say she does enjoy being humiliated or abused. It'd be really cool to see her walk alone in some part of New York at night, and she's just distraught looking, and then she sees a homeless person just sitting down in the corner somewhere, and then she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and she rips $100 bill out of her pocket. She's like, "Just take a shit on me." And he's like, "What? What, you want more?" She pulls out 200 or 300. She's like, "Pull out your pants and take a dump on my head." And then the guy's like, "What's, huh?" And then he does it, and then she's just walking around New York trying to do things like order a cup of coffee with like a steaming log on her head. I enjoy Homelander's character. It's complex, and of course I mentioned earlier it gets more complex as the series go on. Look, you can't help but feel bad for him. Even if that sympathy you have is at a 1%, you can't help but feel bad for him as it is revealed he is a product of, as mentioned earlier, drugs and not divine intervention. He was grown up in a lab with no loving parents, very isolated upbringing. Of course, that kind of gives a reason as to why he's so cold and isolating himself. A-Train's character is very greedy. You know, his lover Popclaw at one point professes her love for him, even in the event that he fails and is no longer part of the Seven, even if he loses all of his contracts and not enough money. But then he immediately focuses on the materialistic aspects of winning and the race. He doesn't care about love, at least not entirely. That's a great setup for him to change and grow in the future as it happens. I like the Deep a lot. His character is somewhat stupid, a bit of comedic relief, and the only aspect to his character that we can even come close to playing an arc of some kind is like self-consciousness or selfishness. He's kind of self-centered in his self-conscious behavior about the way he looks. He can one day stand up to those who make fun of him, even if it's his own thoughts, and may even learn to be selfless and sacrifice himself in order to grow. I think that'd be very cool and a very nice redeeming arc for him. I don't really like any other character from The Boys. I mean, Butcher's cool, but not really. He's just a ball of anger. Mother's Milk is a bit more complex, but we don't get to see any of that until much later in the seasons. Huey is predictable and only somewhat cool. Frenchie is just a drug addict, submissive gimp genius, which is a combo that does not exist in nature or in reality in the slightest. If you tell a pill popper or an acid head or a pot head to build you a bomb, they're more likely to blow you or the bong before making anything that complex. Kamiko is a mute freak who barely contributes. So yeah, sticking more with what I find good, this is a scene where A-Train and Huey face off, and the way A-Train say, "Where is the V?" is so funny, dude. Let me pull up that clip. No, Jamie, pull up that clip.
You mean like this? Jonesing for a little jet fuel?
What is that?
I don't know what that shit is. Oh, you don't? So, you don't mind if I do this?
No! What the fuck is wrong with you? I have a bigger dose.
Where is it? You know, this shit must be pretty good. If it's worth running through a human being for.
Oh my god, man, that was an accident. Where the fuck is the V?
I could go on a lot longer, but I simply don't want to, so I'll just end this off by saying overall I really enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the next 2 seasons as well, so be on the lookout for those reviews coming up later. Keep in mind, reviews on shows will be a lot longer and a lot slower to put out than movies because of the runtime as well as the release dates and episodes and yada yada yada. But overall, a good show. I'm sorry about not uploading so consistently. I've been working on a lot of things and spending a lot more time on those, though of course in my previous videos I did mention I will never quit on this. At least I will make my best effort not to. And I won't forget to upload at least once a month or something like that. Other than that, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you want me to review anything that you want. Like the video if you did. Subscribe for more content on film reviews, TV shows, series like that. You guys rock. Thanks again. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.